Ms. Weisenthal, Ms. Crane, can you please both confirm you're ready?
I'm ready. I'm ready.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. It's good to see everybody. We're on the proceeding number 23A-0353R. My name is ALJ Segev. I'm the administrative law judge assigned to this proceeding. It is now 9 a.m. on Friday, June 6, 2025. This remote pre-hearing conference was scheduled by interim decision R25-0416-I on June 2nd, issued on June 2nd, 2025. I would like to inform or remind the attendees that both the audio and video feeds of this proceeding are being live streamed on the Commission's YouTube channel. This pre-hearing conference is also being recorded, and we have a court reporter who is transcribing everything that's being said. Let's please begin with entries of appearance. Counsel for the City of Longmont.
Thank you, Your Honor. Brandon Dittman of Wilson, Williams, Fellman, Dittman appearing on behalf of the City of Longmont.
You. Counsel for BNSF.
Good morning, Your Honor. Caitlin Warner here on behalf of BNSF.
Good morning. Thank you. As you may recall, I initially scheduled this pre-hearing conference in this matter for May 21st, 2025 to address any remaining impasse between the parties. However, in light of a motion for extension of time that was filed by BNSF shortly before the May 21st pre-hearing conference, and based on the parties' availability, we agreed to reschedule the pre-hearing conference for today. Today's pre-hearing conference is being held in accordance with Rule 1409A of the Commission's Rules of Practice and Procedure to address any remaining disputed issues between the parties. I'm not going to swear anybody in or treat the statements made today as evidence. However, I will allow the parties to explain their respective positions so that we, including myself, can better understand the scope and nature of any outstanding issues. I do not intend to make any rulings from the bench today or decide the merits of any issues raised during this conference. As you know, the merits of disputed issues should be resolved through evidence presented in an evidentiary hearing. I suggest we proceed with this pre-hearing conference as planned. At the conclusion of the discussion, I will circle back with the counsel for each of the parties and address any hearing if necessary. I'm open to considering any reasonable proposals, including pre-filed testimony, remote hearing, hybrid hearing, in-person hearing, and as I said, any procedural framework that the parties may wish to suggest. Following the conference, I will issue a written decision addressing whatever we agree to during this pre-hearing conference. Before we proceed with the substance of this pre-hearing conference, I would like to hear from counsel of each of the parties what they think about this plan, and if they have anything to add or ask or request by way of preliminary matters. I will start with you, Mr. Dittman.
Yeah, I don't think I have any questions on the plan. I think getting the substance first may help form my ideas on what the next steps are. I think, as you'll see, I don't think there's too many issues in dispute per se as to the larger issue of the crossing. These are kind of mostly very small things that we're just struggling to come to a consensus on. And so I don't even know if an evidentiary hearing would be the proper forum to kind of resolve those at this point.
Okay. Thank you for that, Mr. Dittman. Ms. Werner, any thoughts?
I would agree with what Mr. Dittman said. I would just add that I don't know if there's per se disagreements. It's just I think some things need to be finalized and kind of put a bow on, as I understand it.
Okay. Okay. So why won't we, at no particular order? I mean, if you had some sort of a presentation plan, I will let you proceed with that. And again, we'll circle back at the end of this and see what we need to do. Have the parties discussed who might be speaking first or addressing any issues first?
Yeah, I'm happy to start if you'd like, Your Honor, just to kind of address from at least from our perspective. I think we were the ones that initially requested this pre-hearing
Of course.
conference, and so um, from the city's perspective, the public necessity of this crossing has been, basically determined since last November. Since that time, we have been trying to come to agreement on, really, I guess, small issues related to the crossing design. I've been diligently working, at least from the city's perspective, on coming as close as we can to the concerns raised by BNSF. We want to be as cooperative and responsive as we can be. The problem I think we're running into at this point is like we're getting closer and closer to the end, and the problems are getting, I guess, harder to manage, I guess, and at least from the city's perspective, to some degree, the goalposts are somewhat changing on some of these issues, which is a problem for us because we want to, get this crossing to construction as fast as possible with resolving as many points as possible. And so, at least from a timeline perspective, from the last time we've met, we sent in new responses on May 7th, which, what we thought would resolve all the remaining issues from BNSF. I'd say the largest of the issues concerning the pedestrian treatment of the crossing. BNSF's recommendation is to have the diagnostic team reconvene and reevaluate what that looks like from a design perspective. We are afraid that will basically require a new application, kind of given the substantive nature of that change. In addition to that issue, there I would say smaller issues concerning the preemption timings, curb detail, exit gates, turning radius, and some potentially obstructed viewing of signals, which I consider to be much more minor problems, some of which can be easily fixed and some of which we've tried to fix to the extent we can. And we don't know to what extent we have to keep changing the design, I guess, at this point to try to get closer and closer to what the BNSF would like. Again, we'd like to be responsive as possible and try to meet as many things as we can. We just don't, want this process to go on indefinitely and trying to get closer and closer to an ideal. I have all the city's technical experts on the line to address any questions about our perspective on any one of these issues. And so we have, the expert on preemption timings and the turning radius and all that stuff we can go through individually. But I think what we are looking for from the commission is really just a determination on whether basically the crossing has to be redesigned for the pedestrian, treatment. And then two, what is the way forward to get this finally done and then towards construction.
All right. Okay. Ms. Werner, would you like to make a statement or explain BNSF's perspective?
Please, and thank you, Your Honor. And also we have folks here both from BNSF and consultants that are welcome to interrupt me if I'm misinterpreting something. So as it still stands, there's 10 outstanding items. They vary in level of significance. As was written in I think our last status report, we still have not received a response from the city on that. I think we had mentioned possibly in a date certainly get a response. And like I said, they vary. But the most important of which I think is the pedestrian treatments. That was never discussed at the diagnostic, so it needs to be addressed. So it's not that we are reconvening, it's that we need to actually address that. And there's a few other things that we do need to just address. Some of these items, I think they just need to update their plans. Others, we're now in a new design phase that it wasn't addressed before. So again, I think in my perspective, it's pretty simple. We just need to get either updated plans but the biggest is the pedestrian treatment. And as I understand it, the city doesn't per se object to looking into that. They just don't want to delay the time. So I would just suggest that we get something on the books and then get started and move forward from there.
And I don't think it's a bad idea. But I do want to go into since the pedestrian treatment is one of the biggest big ticket items, that it seems to me that if that was resolved, then it seems perhaps I don't know, then the other items are probably easier to fix. And I appreciate Ms. Werner, that you said that there are level degrees of significance, or I'm not sure how you put it, but for each of the items on which the parties do not yet agree on. But again, the pedestrian, I think both parties agree the pedestrian treatment, as it relates to the crossing, is a big ticket item for both parties. At least the biggest ticket item remaining for both parties. And I don't understand that issue as well as I'd like to. So without, I guess, well, with or without getting technical, I'd like to understand what the specifically what the issues are with respect to the pedestrian treatment as it relates to the crossing.
Yeah, I mean, I think the original design of the crossing included pedestrian gates, and BNSF would like it to not have pedestrian gates, if I'm remembering correctly. Due to what they feel is industry standards, and as Ms. Werner mentioned, we're fairly agnostic as to whether it has or it has not these gates, from my understanding. But the problem from our perspective is our understanding that if we were to change that, we would have to refile this application, which we don't want to do. And just the overall kind of cascading effect on the design of the crossing and further delaying this project if we were to change it.
And you mean the swing gates?
Yeah, and maybe Charlie, can you help me out on the design here?
Okay.
And introduce yourself, Charlie.
Mr. Cross.
Yeah, Charlie Cross, project manager for the city of Longmont. Yes, that is the situation that the city is. We don't want to have to resubmit the PUC application if we have to redesign the pedestrian swing gates. Originally, I believe the swing gates in the original PUC submission were proper construction practices, and I believe now they're not exactly that.
Per the railroad's perspective, yeah.
Yeah, from the railroad's perspective, yes.
Okay. Thank you for that. And Ms. Werner, can you please comment on that?
Yeah, and if I may, I'd defer to Rafer, who may be able to give more, because he's been involved cradle to grave on this.
Yeah, I'd love to weigh in here. So Ray for Nichols, BNSF Railway, and am I able to share my screen? Is that possible? So I can explain to the issue.
Yes, I will again. This is all for informational purposes.
Sure, yeah.
Everybody in attendance and me, I understand what we're talking about. So yes, you may share your screen.
I think the host will have to enable screen sharing.
Yes, I just made you a co-host, so you should be able to do it now.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
All right, so can everyone see the plans on my screen here?
Yes.
So what is proposed? There's two major issues. We didn't talk about the additional exit gate as well, so I'll hit on the first issue, which is the swing gates from the pedestrian treatment. So as designed, the city is proposing these two swing gates across the sidewalk. Okay, and you can see them here next to the red flashers. So those swing gates introduce an unnecessary obstacle for vulnerable users to navigate. So people in wheelchairs, mothers with strollers, folks riding bicycles on a sidewalk, which is legal in Colorado, will have to stop in front of that gate. If you imagine you're pushing a shopping cart or a stroller, you have to go around the front of the shopping cart or the stroller and pull the gate open in order to proceed through the sidewalk on the gate. And while those are seen in Colorado, they are regularly seen defeated or broken. So, users don't like them such that they tie them open with ropes or break them. And that really defeats the purpose of these swing gates. And, BNSF is, not trying to delay this, but what we want is the diagnostic team to decide what is installed in lieu of these swing gates. And that's the process that needs to happen. That never happened. Somehow these just showed up on the plans without the team convening and determining what should be approved. And it sounds like the city doesn't necessarily want them or not. It's just they don't want to have to refile their application if they're removed. So if maybe we can dispel that right away, because if they don't need to refile their application, if we come up with an alternate design that's acceptable to all parties, then I think that issue is moot.
Yeah, on just one second. Right. Let me think for a second. So it seems to me that any changes, swing gates or not, to the plans would require an amendment of the application. Mr. Dittman, you referenced having the need to possibly having to refile the whole application. Can you expand on that? Because I'm not sure I'm following that need.
We would happy to file an amendment. That would be our preferred process. And discussing with commission staff, commission advisory staff long ago, my understanding is that if we were to change the cross arms or the pedestrian gates, that would be considered a substantial change, which would require filing a new application. And so if we had an order from the commission saying we could amend, our plans without refiling this application, at least with regards to the pedestrian gates, that significantly cuts down on our concerns with complying. I mean, in the second part of it, what Mr. Nichols is saying about alternative approaches, I don't know what that entails, whether it require additional redesign or not. But if it's simply a matter of removing the pedestrian gates, I don't think we're opposed to that at all.
Okay. All right. So okay. Is there? I think I now understand the pedestrian the swing gates situation or what let's move on unless does anybody else want to talk about the swing gates or yeah, does anybody else want to talk specifically about the swing gates that we can see on our screen now? Okay. All right. So Mr. Dittman, what is the next, in your eyes at least, most significant item that requires discussion and the parties coming to an understanding?
I think the other issue is the other gate arm, it sounds like, from Mr. Nichols' perspective. And so I think they want to remove a gate arm. Is that right, Mr. Nichols?
That's correct. There's 4 quad gates shown here, and the 4th one is completely unnecessary in BNSF's opinion, and we'll have to install it and maintain it for perpetuity. The reason it is proposed is to get an what's called an SSM application in with the Federal Railroad Administration, which is like kind of a fast-tracked application. But very simply, the city could propose what's called an ASM application to the FRA and get that approved to not have that extra gate device. And I don't think the city has talked to the FRA about that, such that that it could be removed and everyone would be in agreement.
Is there anybody from the city or Mr. Dittman that can respond to that concern?
Yeah, I mean, I would say that it's been a 4-gate design since it's been submitted. And so I think this, from our perspective, is a newer concern, but I would defer to Mr. Cross or Mr. Street or anyone else who has been more involved in the design process.
Mr. Cross or anybody else would like to make a statement on this issue?
If it's design level questions, I would refer to JUB and have them answer that. So
And we probably have
them.
on the, do we?
Yes, Your Honor. Brian Klatt with JEB. Been assisting with the design from the city's perspective on the quiet zones through Longmont. All the crossings proposed in Longmont, there's several being worked on right now, and all of them have been proposed as SSM crossings. Introducing an ASM crossing into that, from our discussions with FRA, would affect the application for the entire set of crossings within the quiet zone corridor was our understanding. And this has been proposed from the beginning as an SSM crossing for the purpose of that. Yeah.
Thank you for that. Again, I think I mean, I understand the party's position. Regarding, all right, actually, let me back up just a bit. What is it that the city wants to happen with respect to this item? Mr. Klatt, maybe I think you might be in a position to address that question.
Yeah, keeping the 4-quadrant gate system is the only way that we can keep the SSM system here. And as far as the city's perspective, I think it's, and I don't want to speak on behalf of the city too much, so please correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's in their best interest to keep the SSMs for this crossing to not impact the rest of the crossings in the Longmont corridor. The other option would be extending the median, but unfortunately, because of the intersection, it's just not a option. It's not physically possible to get the length required to meet an SSM for this area.
Okay. Let's move on. I think what we might do is just march through the issues. I'll hear from both parties. I may then take a short recess. And I urge the party during that I would urge the party during that recess to think what they, from their perspective, what would be the best way to approach each or perhaps all of these issues. And then we'll agree to whatever we'll agree and move on. So I understand. I think I understand the party's perspective with respect to the SSM. What is the next issues that might be helpful for us to discuss? And either party just shout it out, and we'll talk about it.
If we're going through the list, I think the preemption calculations is the next one. It was identified by BNSF, and there's been quite a bit of back and forth on. I will defer to Mr. Olson on the city's behalf to kind of discuss that issue.
Of course. Mr. Olson, I think you're.
Good morning, Your Honor. Joe Olson with Next Phase Engineering, working with the city on this project. I actually think we're really close on the preemption calculations. The latest round of comments that we got back from the railroad was basically just asking for it's consider extending a green extension. I don't want to get all down in the weeds, but I think we're really talking like a half a second of time, which I think the city would be amenable to doing with it doesn't have any real impact on the operation.
Okay, so it seemed, well, let me hear from BNSF. Thank you very much, Mr. Olson. Let me hear from BNSF's perspective. What are your thoughts on this, on the preemption calculations?
BNSF will defer to our consultant, Karen, Ms. Hankinson, on this.
Good afternoon, Karen, or morning, Karen Hankinson, Olson, representing BNSF. And I would agree that it's a minor concern, and I believe Joe can refine the calcs to our satisfaction.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much. This was the easiest item so far. I hope the rest of them are just as easy. Let's move on to the next issue.
Yeah, the next issue on the list is a detail for a vertical curb not being a mountable curb, and they would like us to revise the plans to include a mountable curb. And so this is not my expertise. I think maybe Brian Klatt could speak to this.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I don't see any issue with making those adjustments to the plans. Make it a mountable curb for better equipment access for BNSF maintenance.
And maybe you can explain, Your Honor, whether these items would require a plan submittal and a full, a reapplication, or just an amendment is, because I think the city is acceptable to make these changes if they can submit an amendment to their application and not have to start the timeline over. So that's, I think, their primary concern on most of these items is that they have to change the design and it might affect their timeline.
I understand, and that's an understandable concern, but I cannot tell the city it's not my role how to proceed. We may be able through discussions with staff of the commission be able to address this specific issue. My job is to make a determination on the evidence, and so I understand the predicament that the city is in, but I cannot tell the city how to pursue to move forward. I will try to the best of my ability to see if we can engage staff of the commission to try to answer some of these questions. Go ahead, Mr. Dittman.
Yeah, and just to clarify, I mean, from my understanding, the only two changes that would require potentially, if that was the order of the commission, a new application would be the gate change and the pedestrian treatment change. The rest of these, I think, can easily fix an amendment, but those are kind of major design level changes from what the original submission was, which may or may not, depending on, we're really asking for a declaratory order, basically.
So I see what you're saying. So the gate change and what was the other item?
The pedestrian swing gates.
Oh, yeah, the swing gates.
So who makes it? Can you educate me, Your Honor? Is it the commission staff makes that decision, or a commission needs to put out an order that makes that decision?
I'm not sure the question is, I can answer the question the way it was framed. Well, can you repeat the question?
Who makes the decision on whether an amendment, plan amendment to the application is
the
accepted?
applicant. The applicant.
Well, I mean, if we can make the decision that all this is an amendment, then we would do it. But I don't think that's necessarily what the rules of procedure require. So again, we're requesting a declaratory order basically on those
Right.
two pieces.
Yeah, the problem is that all of the appropriate, we might have been able to do something, but all of the all of staff, all of commission staff that could have perhaps tried to streamline this situation is advisory staff. So there we have 3 individuals, and they're all advisory staff to me. So I don't know how to address this situation. This is not. Mr. Rafer asked me, whose responsibility? It's it's the applicant's responsibility to pursue the application. I cannot tell the applicant. I can point the applicant to our rules and procedures, and the applicant may file whatever motions for declaratory orders or whatever it sees fit. But I cannot tell the applicant how to pursue its application. This is a difficult situation, and again, I am not sure how we overcome it. I can say that I do not know whether a new application would be required. And I can say that it does not seem to me that a new application would definitely be required, even if we consider these 2 changes. But I cannot. I'm not gonna make a determination as to whether it's necessarily required or necessarily not required.
So
go ahead, Mr. Dittman.
So my question to Your Honor would be, the only way to know then would be to file an amendment with these changes and then either have it rejected or accepted.
I don't know. I would need to think about it.
Okay, yeah, sorry, Your Honor. That's fine. I mean, we have some guidance in whatever orders to follow. I think that would be helpful for us. Wish we should resolve the rest. Let's get to the rest of these issues. But on the larger issue specifically of how we are to proceed, any guidance that can be provided would be grateful, because at least in the pedestrian swing gate issue, I mean, that is entirely determined upon to what extent that requires a delay in the timeline. So
yeah, again, it doesn't seem to me that the changes are so vast that a new application would be required. Again, I am not saying that one is or isn't. I just don't want to overstep my what I am allowed to do here. And I understand your predicament. I understand you want to move this forward, and so long as and as long as you're not getting an answer from me, and the parties, then that may delay the city's timeline. Again, I think in a different situation where not all 3 relevant staff members of the commission who are advisors to me, we might have been able to do something, but all 3 have been looked in on this case. And so I don't know how. I will need to think about it. I don't know how to approach it, and I can't tell you definitively what I'm going to do right now, as you're asking me. Would it be helpful to keep marching through the points of I will call them points of contention, though I understand that they may not be so contentious.
I believe that would be the correct approach, Your Honor.
All right, so let's move. So with the last item we discussed,
the mountable curb, I believe, was the last one we discussed.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
The mountable curb, but Ms. Werner.
Yes,
please.
if I may, And thank you, Your Honor. I understand we're kind of throwing a curveball at you. Of these 10 items, I think the 3 most significant, there's one we have not gone over. And so I don't want that to be lost in the shuffle. So I apologize, but I wonder if it makes sense to talk about the diagnostic team with the further discussion on obstruction for approaching motorists.
That was
Because I
gonna be the
think the
next one.
rest really aren't. Oh, okay, thank you.
Yeah, I was marching through the list, so.
Okay. Yeah, we'll go through the executive summary, just FYI, on our end.
Yeah, so the next issue that there's been discussion on that BNSF has also requested reconvening the diagnostic team on is an obstruction or potential obstruction of the flashers based on the position of, I believe, the city's traffic signal. But again, I would refer to Mr. Klatt for the explanation fully.
Go ahead, Mr. Klatt.
Thanks, Your Honor. My understanding of BNSF's concern is the obstruction of the flasher. This exhibit that Rafer, I believe Rafer is sharing this, thank you, is demonstrating the areas where there is restricted visibility of the flasher as the motorist would approach the intersection. Our stance is that the obstruction is not a significant impact to the user. There's visibility of all of the flashers for the majority of the approach and through the majority of the intersection. There's partial visibility at all points except for that nice dark red area, essentially right in front of the post. So assuming that the preemption timing does not work, a motorist would still have visibility of the flashers as they approach the intersection. In addition to the gate arm coming down and the flashers that are on the gate arm. The preemption also shouldn't allow motorists to be making turning movements or traveling through the intersection in the first place. So they should have a solid red, in the case of through traffic that we're demonstrating here, a solid red ball, preventing them from making that movement in the first place. So I understand the concern that BNSF has presented. I don't think it is a substantial enough concern. The alternatives that we considered involved significant utility impacts or quite substantial structures required to be able to mount traffic signal equipment out there. I, to my knowledge, didn't hear of any alternatives that didn't require substantial redesign of the intersection.
And Mr. Klatt, can you explain a little more what those kind of obstacles are to changing this design?
Yes, I can do my best. I'm trying to remember. Unfortunately, I don't. We're experiencing a technical issue on our end, so I don't have full access to our plans at this moment. But I believe there were some utility conflicts that would be further to the south. Sorry, the skew always throws me off here. On the other side of the sidewalk, I believe there are some utility conflicts. So moving the pedestrian or the flashing the caisson, excuse me, further south that the signal equipment comes up off of. One would increase the obstruction to approaching motorists more rather than, and I guess it would just move the obstruction until we got even further south. And at that point, we're looking at a mast arm of substantial length. And I believe that there's outside of standard specifications, I think we're getting into the realm of needing a structural design for those caissons. Did that, Brandon, did that answer your?
Yeah, I think so. Thank you.
Okay.
So thank you for that, Mr. Klatt. For BNSF, can anybody talk to that, address what Mr. Klatt just did?
And I believe that would be Karen, but please let me know if there's someone better suited.
Yeah, I would be happy to start. Sean Hall, who also represents BNSF Signal. Feel free after I'm done, Sean, to weigh in from your perspective. Yeah, the concern that the blue area actually, you know, is a total obstruction of the flasher. When you talk about a grade crossing that has an approach like this, you have a curvature. It's a technically a one lane plus a bike lane. We have multiple users, and we want to make sure that any users that are approaching a crossing have awareness when that crossing is activated. So the concern is that if you have obstruction, and we did have an activation event, that a motorist or a cyclist wouldn't be aware that the crossing's activated. And although Brian makes a great point, this is interconnected, and if the system is working as intended, then the traffic signal would be providing indication to not have people proceed towards the crossing prior to the lights at the crossing activating. But as we know, sometimes traffic signals lose power or have a conflict and they go into a flash condition, and are unable to provide that indication of the solid red that Brian talked about. And in those cases, it becomes extremely important to have the motorists have an awareness of the activation of the crossing so they don't proceed. While the gate may prohibit them from proceeding over the crossing, vehicles could be in an intersection situation and not allow vehicles in the other direction to clear under a track clearance green movement. So for the overall safety consideration of the users of this crossing, the BNSF team feels that it's very important that we improve crossing flasher visibility. This is a brand new crossing, and I feel like this is a greenfield. And although there are utility conflicts, I think there's other design options that the diagnostic team could talk about. A median flasher would provide additional visibility. Perhaps the traffic signal pole being mounted in a different location, different corner to provide the vehicle head visibility. I think there's ways that we can work around this, especially considering there's nothing there. I mean, utilities, but nothing other physical obstructions currently. And I'll defer to Sean if he has any further comments.
Good afternoon, everybody. Guess I turn on my video. Sorry about that. Can you hear me okay?
Can hear you.
Yes.
Okay. So yeah, no, I'll just echo those same comments, Your Honor. Nothing additional really to add. The median flasher that was recommended on there is a pretty easy fix to get around any confrontation or confliction with utilities and stuff of that nature. However, this all goes back to I think the same initial concern with the agency.
Right. It seems to me that that this is an issue that could be solved by the installation of a supplemental flasher, which I understand should not be too difficult to accomplish based on visibility and the current structure of the crossing. So am I understanding this correctly?
Mr. Clatt, can you comment on that?
Yes, Your Honor. I believe you are understanding that correctly. I did have a question, if I may, about Karen's statement. You mentioned a blue area. Rafer, could you share your screen again? I just want to make sure we're presenting information to you correctly, in case that's would be helpful. But were you talking about the hatched green area? Is that
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, thank you. That was all I wanted to make sure that I understood what your point was.
So, Mr. Clatt, adding a flasher would not cause additional utility conflicts or be a problem from a design perspective?
From a design perspective, it would be challenging, unfortunately, to add a median flasher, as I believe Karen and Sean both talked about. It would be, we would need to widen the median out to 9.5 feet, I believe, at a minimum. And to do that, our current intersection geometry doesn't allow for that. We would have to widen the length of the crossing to make that happen. Karen mentioned, there are other options and locations that we could consider for installation of a flasher. I don't think there's many options for location of the signal head installation that would be a simple solution. There are several solutions that I think could happen. I don't know if any of them would be straightforward, but I think a supplemental flasher, well, actually, this exhibit's great. I think where that little multi-leader is pointing in that red area would, I think if we put a flasher right there, that would work from my very brief understanding. So I think that there are options for supplemental flashers that would work in this situation
without widening the median, which could potentially impact the bike lane.
Correct. Yeah. And yeah, I think Rafer's nice sketch there also does demonstrate. I thank you. I overlooked that mast arm location. So, yeah.
All right. So it seems to me that with a little bit more discussion between the parties, again, the level of complexity at this stage is beyond me to try to decide. But it seems to me that this is an item that can be that the parties can agree on based on everybody speaking here today. So anybody else would like to say anything about the flasher, supplemental flasher issue? Okay, let's since we're at it, let's move on to the next item.
Yeah, the next one we had on the list from BNSF was we already talked about pedestrian crossings. So the next one would be consider relocating a type 3 barricade closer to the intersection to further deter motorists from accessing this approach. And I will mention this was a new comment that appeared for the first time on 514. And Brian, are you probably the best person to address this?
I would be, again, unfortunately, I'm unable to access the plans. I believe that this adding a type 13 barricade would not be a problem, although the exact location I don't have on hand.
I can share my screen if I'm allowed access.
Yeah.
Brain, would you kindly allow Ms. Atkinson access?
Yes, you should be able to share now.
I apologize for the inconvenience, everyone.
So here we go. I'm hoping that's you guys can see, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, good. It doesn't highlight, so I just wanted to make sure I was sharing the correct screen. So this is in the phase 4 of the construction. It's just to pull it a little bit closer so we don't have anybody making a, mistake and proceeding in a way that wouldn't allow them to. So Brian, we're good with this one?
Yes, absolutely.
This one off. Okay.
Yes.
Good. Awesome. Thank you.
So, Mr. Klatt, anything else you would like to state on this?
No, Your Honor. We should have no difficulty there.
Very good. And so BNSF would like to make any statement on this issue?
We're good.
Okay. Very good. All right. So the next, Mr. Dittman, what is the next item?
The next item is to consider replacing the proposed 6-section traffic signal head with the left turn arrows on pole P with a 3-section ball traffic signal head for westbound traffic at the Price Avenue, Boston Avenue intersection. And this is also a new comment. Was it Mr. Olson is the one to address this?
Mr. Olson, would you?
If somebody can share the traffic signal design, that would be helpful.
I'm working on getting to that page, so just give me a second. Okay. Okay. Can you see the comment well enough? Is that zoomed in well enough for you, Joe?
Yeah.
And I can explain more, but I also don't want to over complicate this discussion. So
no, that's an easy fix also. And I agree. I thought you were talking about the one over on the southwest corner, not the northwest. So yeah, that makes sense.
Okay, great. Thank you.
So that mean, in my understanding, that the parties are in agreement with respect to the type 3 barricade.
I think this is the traffic signal, Your Honor.
Yeah.
Consider replacing the pro 6-section traffic signal.
Yeah, one clarification, it's actually a 5-section, not a 6-section, but agree that it could be a 3-section with just balls, no arrows.
Sounds good, thanks.
You know, while I'm on, I'll jump back to the visibility of the signal light or the flasher for just a second, because it popped into my head. Karen talked about if there's a malfunction and the signal goes to flash, there would still be flashing red on all approaches through the traffic signal to provide the redundancy. Or even if the power goes out, there's battery backup at this intersection to maintain the intersection for some time. I would add that the city of Longmont is their own electric utility provider and has an excellent uptime reliability for their power. And so it's in my opinion, very highly unlikely that there's ever going to be a situation where this signal is dark and there's not going to be any redundancy for visibility of the signals or the flashers.
Yeah, great that the city has the capabilities for the power. That's really fantastic, especially at locations that are interconnected, such as this one is proposed to be. I would just say under the flash red, motorists are allowed to stop and then proceed. So for that reason, that's typically not a signal-based condition that we like to see as traffic engineers. It's that emergency, something's not working well on the controller. And unfortunately, that does happen. So we want to make sure that if we can provide additional visibility to the flashers, that for those types of situations.
Okay, let me think for a second. Any other comments on the on this issue?
Again, I feel like we're a little bit splitting hairs on looking for an ideal solution to a extremely complicated, complex situation that the city in good faith has made every effort to make this intersection as safe and as with the signals as visible as possible.
Okay. Okay. So let me go back to BNSF. What is BNSF's concern with respect to the signal?
So I just want to make sure, like, the one comment that we started Joe with was the traffic signal heads, and I think we've agreed that we're all good on that. And Joe wanted to bring this up, which is fine. So just to clarify which traffic signal and which issue for resolution, is that fair?
Okay.
So okay. So at the end of the day, all of the devices out here are traffic control devices for the users, whether that's the flashing lights or the traffic signal heads or the signs. They're all part of one system to relay information to those that are using the crossing. And we appreciate the City of Longmont's good faith efforts to come up with designs that best serve the users at a crossing. And we understand that they look at intersections all day long throughout their city and make the determinations as to what's safe for the users. I think the BNSF team perspective, we look at crossings all day long. And so our perspective is slightly different than the general city's perspective of looking at roadway intersections. We're looking at roadway intersections. And with that, at the end of the day, we want to make sure that users that are using the intersection and the crossing, this new crossing that's so close to the intersection, that those two intersections and the traffic control devices that are used for both of them work very well together so that users have the greatest success. And we're not creating a situation through a design that's could be a little bit better, could be better enhanced by some modifications so that we don't have an incident of a train and a motorist or some sort of user being in conflict. That's our ultimate goal. And I think the PUC is in agreement, right, with the protection of public safety. So the refinements that we're asking for, I think, are in line with that.
Right. Obviously, you know, the role of the commission in this regard is to consider public safety as a part of approving the city's application. It's the splitting hairs situation that Mr. Olson talked about that I am. There can almost always be something done better. The question is when is something safe and under relatively objective terms, meaning you can always keep changing, but by changing, you may not make it safer. So where is the point where we've made enough changes? We both parties agree that it's safe, and we stop. So and I'm not saying the parties haven't talked in good faith, or that the BNSF does not, or either party is not concerned with public safety. That's not my point. The point is, when do we stop making changes when both parties agree that the crossing is safe for pedestrians and everybody else. Does this point seem like an issue? Let me ask you this. It's an opinion, I guess, but Mr. Olson, do you think you would be that the parties would be able to reach an understanding as to this point?
Well,
an agreement.
Yeah. Again, I think we'd have to go back, as Mr. Klatt alluded. You know, there's a potential to look at adding an additional flasher somewhere to help with that. And if there's a way to do that, that's not overly burdensome on the city, like widening the road or something like that, then that's certainly something I think that Mr. Klatt indicated that could be done. And I think we'd have to go back and look at that, right, Brian?
Yes, that's correct. I believe, yeah, like I said, there's some utility conflicts in the area that could be an issue. There's Mr. Nichols drew in a possibility of running our signals from the mast arm in the northeast quadrant. So just items like that I hadn't looked at the details of, that I'm sure, Joe, you know signals infinitely better than I do. So some of that stuff.
I think my point, and I appreciate Karen's comments about safety, because we're all in this profession because we believe that safety for the traveling public is the top priority. The challenge, Your Honor, as you were alluding to, is there's a million hypotheticals that you could come up with to try to come up with, what might not be the safest it could possibly be. I can tell you that there's crossings all over the country that have issues way worse than this one. This is pretty minor. And when you think about the fact that we've got flashing lights on both approaches or on either sides of the crossing, so even somebody coming up eastbound would be normally or often be able to see the west, the flashers on the kind of the northeast corner. There's flashing lights on the gates, so they would be able to see those. There's gates, there's traffic signals, there's redundancies here that, again, in my opinion, make the risk for a momentary blockage of the flashing light on the southeast quadrant not a significant safety issue. And to me, this should be one that we could agree that while maybe not perfect sometimes is the enemy of good. And I think this is a good design.
A question, Mr. Olson. At its widest point, do you know what the obstruction is? I mean, how many feet are we talking? Like 2?
Brian, do you have that?
I believe, the diameter of the caisson is, I want to say it's 18 inches. It might be 2 feet. But it is a relatively narrow obstruction.
Brian, asked a different way, and this is going to be a hard question, so you can get back to us, but how many seconds of travel would there be some visibility? Because that's what we're talking about. I mean, the width is one thing, but it's actually as the motorist is approaching the crossing, how many seconds would there be either partial or full blockage?
I think to that point, Karen, the larger concern isn't so much a vehicle on approach as much as a vehicle at the stop bar. When we consider the worst case scenario, the conversation was a vehicle is stopped at the stop bar. They receive that instantaneous green at the same time as the gate mechs get triggered for preemption. So we're talking about an acceleration time and a distance there. So that really has to do with the driver's reaction time. So I can do my best to try and get a math there, but a vehicle on approach to the intersection is going to have visibility of those flashers up until the point they hit the stop bar. I'm not sure if that that starts to paint a little bit clearer picture there, but I think about five seconds would be a ballpark of travel time through the intersection.
Thanks for that.
Yeah. Hopefully that answered your questions.
Yeah. Thanks.
Let me ask, I guess whoever wants to answer this. Could the flasher on the northwest quadrant gate be turned to face the Boston approach?
I'm going to defer to Sean as our railroad signal crossings expert for BNSF.
I'm unfamiliar with the directions here on north, south, east, and
this
west.
one.
Show me on the screen which one he's talking on the northwest. Okay, yeah, that's what I was thinking. All right, so that's a backlight, for the MUTCD, and that's not an approach light for the FRA. So that's not for approaching traffic. That's considered a backlight. However, there could be alternative flashers added to that mast, and we could aim them, in any direction. It's not considered as an approaching light for that approach lane because it can be blocked by exiting traffic that's leaving the tracks during an activation. So that exit gate will stay in the up position to allow vehicles to clear the track and get off of the track. While that 18-wheeler or box truck or whatever is clearing the track, they're completely obstructing the view of that from anybody at any point in the intersection. So therefore, that's not really an approach light for that lane.
But to be clear, when that's happening, the eastbound traffic signal is red, correct?
If everything is working as intended, then the traffic signal for eastbound would be red. And the working as intended, we talked about the power, we talked about conflict in the conflict monitor in the traffic signal controller equipment. And one thing we didn't talk about is while our system is proposed to be designed, is being requested to have advanced preemption. And oftentimes the intent, right, our design is set up to provide that advanced preemption to the traffic signal to make sure that that traffic signal for eastbound's red prior to our lights flashing. There are conditions, operational conditions that we have along our tracks that can cause the amount of time that's provided to the traffic signal to vary. And if we're stopped, our train is stopped on approach closer within the crossing limits, there could be times where we're not able to provide the requested amount of advanced preemption time or any advanced preemption time depending on where that train is. So we also need to be aware of those circumstances, operationally speaking, that could affect the information that gets provided from our rail signal system to the traffic signal system.
So Karen, it sounds like this is a point that you're not willing to concede, that this is something that we need to go back and look for that flasher to see if there's some other place to put it. Is that pretty much your position, BNSF's position?
BNSF feels very strongly and requests that the city go back and look at alternatives to provide additional flasher visibility at this location. I think, Joe, also the fact that this is a brand new crossing, and you talked about we have other crossings out there, we do, right? And as we move forward, our industry standards change and our expectations for continual improvement when it comes to crossing design. And this one, since it's brand new, it's hard to think that we can't make it, set it up for success at the onset of the construction of this new grade crossing.
Brandon, this wasn't a comment that came in at the beginning, or maybe Charlie knows. This came in later, right?
This came in May 14th of this year.
Well, you guys actually prepared this exhibit and provided it to us. So I perhaps think maybe with our March comments, we had made this, and then there was some, okay, thanks, Joe. It's been a little bit. right? And as that design progressed,
Yeah, I think that's maybe part of the challenge is that, you know, we've been through, I don't know how many rounds of review now, and it just, new things keep coming up that are difficult to meet.
Okay. I really appreciate this discussion. I think that the parties now understand what the concern of the other party is. So, especially it's certainly with respect to the flasher. I suggest we move unless anybody else wants to make any statement about this. Mr. Dittman, what is the next item?
Yeah, thank you, Your Honors. The next one I have on the list is that specify what traffic signal heads will have OVLF operations. And so, Mr. Olson, I think this is your report.
Yeah, Karen, could you put the signal back up, please? Thank you. We tried to label per BNSF's request which signal heads were which being driven by which phases or overlaps. For the eastbound overlap F, we actually put the label at the stop line eastbound rather than at the signals, because I think, Brian, it was just, you were just trying to find a spot to put that. But basically the eastbound through phases, so it would be signal display 1 and 2, basically, would be driven by overlap F.
Thank you for that. Okay. Would the city, I'm sorry, would BNSF like to make any statement on this?
no, we just want a clarification, so we're good with that. Thanks.
Okay, very good. What is Mr. Dittman, what is the next item?
The next item is that reference R31 sign code and show both slash and arrow as solid for consistency with MUTCD.
Yeah, I can take this one, Your Honor. We have no issue complying with that, so we accept and understand the comment. It'll be addressed.
Very good. Maybe the easiest one so far. Mr. Dittman, what is the next item?
Yeah, the next one is northbound to eastbound and westbound to northbound truck turning movements will impede the curb radius, revise design accordingly. I do think this one may be a bigger one from the city's perspective.
Okay, who might be the best person to talk about this?
I think Brian, Mr. Klatt, are you probably the best person?
I'm actually hopeful we have Kevin Smith is one of the other design engineers on here. Oh, yeah. If he's available to take this one.
Yes, Kevin Smith here, also with JB. Yeah, as we were looking at this, it was certainly tight. I believe Boston is designed to a collector level, so the turning radii are a little tight for these bigger trucks. However, we do understand BNSF's concern with clearing the tracks and all of that. So I believe our solution was to run mountable curb around the corners there. As you can see, the truck's back wheels do just go over the curb edge there. So we believe the mountable curb will solve that.
Is it also the case that the city is taking this off as truck route? I think I remember hearing.
I believe Charlie would need to respond to that one.
Mr. Dittman, can you repeat your question? I didn't get it.
Yeah,
So,
I think in addition to like the design features to help solve this issue, the city is also proposing that this route not be used by trucks as a way to keep trucks off of this
That is correct.
roadway. Yeah.
okay.
So sorry, point of clarification then. So Kevin, the mountable curb is essentially a fail-safe option in the event a truck finds its way this direction. Thank you. Sorry, Your Honor, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No. That discussion is what we're trying to do here. So, BNSF, does BNSF have any comment on this?
I think the mountable curb is a smart choice, because sometimes people don't read signs and they end up in places that we didn't intend them to be. So we would appreciate the design refinement on this.
Okay, so that looks like another point of agreement, which I appreciate. Mr. Dittman, what would be the next issue?
That was the last issue that I had, unless there's any new ones.
Okay. So I think we've gotten a little bit closer to an agreement. I understand the agreement is not full, and there are still some significant issues to address. If you hold on just a quick second, I may have a technical question for the parties. Just hold on if you would, please.
Can I ask a quick favor? Can you hear me? Sorry, I was just going to ask Mr. Dittman, when he was explaining that last issue and he went into all the different directions, so I don't have to listen to the tape. Could you go over that real quick again? The northwest movements and the last issue, the last part was about a couple different movements.
On the Harriet, you're talking about the truck mountable curve?
Yeah, the
Okay.
last issue, you gave me the northwest movement, or you threw in a bunch of movements. You were reading it, so maybe.
Okay, yeah, I can reread what the thing says. Oh, that's what the question is. So
Yeah.
What it says is start over. Northbound to eastbound and westbound to northbound truck turning movements will impede the curb radius. Revises design accordingly is what it says.
Thank you.
And I would also offer, BNSF provided the city with an executive summary of these. I mean, they've been in the comment section, but we're more than happy to submit that for clarification on the record, because that's what we're going off of.
Thank you. I sorry, but I lost track as to who was presenting what diagram at what point. So could the last diagram showing the truck lane be put on again? I may have a question. Yes. Does that, okay, so I see on the left side of the page there's a second for that diagram. Is that correct? It says BNSF underscore truck turning underscore X. It's the second, yeah, this one.
There were no comments on this exhibit.
There were no comments on this. Okay, I thought there may have been comments. Okay, all right. I'm glad that there are no comments on this. I think we can take this down, and I appreciate whoever put this on. Thank you, Ms. Atkinson. Okay. Yeah, I'm glad there are no issues on that. Okay. So we can do one of two things. We can take a little break and try to flush out just a little bit more the issues that are still that are still disputed. I don't know that we need to do that. But what I think we do, what I think we might do is, again, I will have, if the parties think any differently on this, please chime in. But I think we should, because it seems as though the parties are pretty close. It's hard to say how close. I think we should let the parties continue to discuss these issues, try to reach an agreement. If the parties can't reach an agreement, I think the next step would not be a pre-hearing conference, but rather some sort of an evidentiary hearing. I don't think we're there yet. I think the parties are motivated and seem ready, able, and willing to resolve this issue. But I think so. With that said, I think we should set a time limit by which the city of Longmont would submit the revised plans. And if the city of Longmont, and if the parties cannot reach an agreement, then the parties would file either a joint or not motions for an evidentiary, requesting an evidentiary hearing on whatever contested issues that are still in place at that time. How does that sound like a good plan? I would like to hear from counsel of each of the parties, please.
Yeah, I mean, Your Honor, I think we can agree to that plan. I think we would want a fairly short runway on this. I think in order to motivate the parties to, resolve this. I'd be looking to, I think, Brian, how soon we could revise plans. I mean, it sounds like at least 7 of these issues we could probably mark off pretty easily. I think the bigger one's going to be the getting rid of the last gate or not. But most of these I think we could resolve fairly quickly. In terms of revising the plans, Brian, what would that take?
We could accomplish that fairly quickly. I think it would be helpful if we could talk with BNSF staff about the 4-quadrant gate system. I think is kind of our major point of difference between us at this point. So there's a time in the next couple weeks that we could discuss that. That would, I think we could have this done within 4 weeks. I think would be potentially sooner. But right now with our technical issues, I'm hesitant to commit anything offhand. Joe Olson, the other element I believe was the preemption calculation adjustments. That is outside of my realm of expertise. Did you have any concerns about completing that quickly?
No, I can get you that today, Brian.
Okay. If we could talk with BNSF and their consultants within the next week, then I think we could have our plans updated and my understanding would be the next step would be sending it to BNSF at that point. Is that correct?
Well, I would be hoping we could, yeah, I mean, we'd resolve it, send it to BNSF, and then we'd get it back in time to submit it to the commission by whatever the deadline was.
Okay.
That would be hope.
I think the 2 primary issues, I mean, everything else, it sounds like you're gonna submit changes, but the 2 primary issues, we need to know if the city intends to handle them or not, or, I mean, that's what we know, and it sounds like that decision is up to the city to make, so.
And that's the swing gates and the 4-quadrant gate system, correct, Rafer?
Correct.
Yeah. I mean, I think my response to that is like as we've said many times, we are willing to remove the pedestrian gates, absent having to redo this application. Sounds like maybe not. I don't think we're necessarily willing to change on the quad gates, but that's for internal discussion.
I think with all that information, I think we'd be ready to send these out from our standpoint, assuming we can discuss things with the city and BNSF within 2 weeks.
And so, Your Honor, I think in order to accommodate that, maybe 6 weeks out would be a deadline, I'm thinking, if based on the timelines I'm hearing.
So within 6 weeks, the city shall either submit the plans for approval or request an evidentiary hearing on whatever item or items still at issue at that time. Is that what you were thinking?
Yeah, Your Honor, I think what I would be thinking is we would submit revised plans regardless with everything that we've fixed at that point, or we've agreed upon. And so if it's the case that only the quad gates issue remains, then the evidentiary hearing would be limited to that sole issue.
Right, but right. So the plans would be submitted. Okay, so I think I understand. The plans would be submitted. You said 6 weeks.
I think unless anyone wants to stop me, I think 6 weeks sounds like a reasonable time frame.
Real quick,
I would just like to add the BNSF, if the city can demonstrate that the FRA would not accept an ASM application within those 6 weeks, discuss that with FRA staff, then we'd be willing to resolve that issue if you show that you've made an effort with the FRA to see if that's acceptable.
Thank you, Rafer. We'll make sure we discuss it with FRA staff prior to moving forward, and we'll let you know how those conversations go. Would you like to be a part of that if there's a need for your input? I assume you would. Thank you.
real quick, I just want to interject. I don't want to overly complicate things, but it's my understanding we still need the diagnostic team on the pedestrian. I'm wondering, it's my understanding that would be beyond the parties. And so if that's the case, I want to make sure we're taking that into account of our time frame, knowing that there's additional involvement needed.
I don't know that the diagnostic team can
Okay.
be at this point in time. In fact, I don't think they can. But and again, this is
you expand on that? Why would why would they not be able to meet? Can you expand on that?
Because of conflicts of interest, because all three staff members are advisors to me. That makes sense? And also procedurally, I believe that, sorry, go ahead. Somebody said something? All right. Let's just leave it at that. I will see what I can do on my end. I don't know that it's a whole lot because I can create people. I can't hire people for purposes of this proceeding. I guess to the extent and apologies in place. I don't know that one is. I'm sorry that we've gotten here and that I cannot offer any more by way of staff's assistance.
Sure. Really, all the parties, be that being BNSF, the city of Longmont, and the FRA, could meet and come to a consensus. And if they all agree, present what we agree on to you, sir, and then you could make a decision from there.
Right. That's right. That's what would happen anyway, right? That's not that we're not changing the process in any way. The applicant file an application. I need to decide whether to approve it. It was done in 2 stages: an initial request for the plans, which was granted, and now we're at at the point where I need to decide, well, first, the final plans need to be submitted, and then I need to decide whether to approve them. If both parties agree, that would make things easier. If the parties don't agree, we need to hold an evidentiary hearing for me to address any outstanding disputed issues. That's how I see it, and I think do counsel of each of the parties agree at least with with a procedural stance of this case.
Your Honor, I do. I don't think it's possible to, as you have recognized, to call the diagnostic team at this point.
Okay, so I think we've gone over this a couple of times, but just so that I can issue an appropriate interim decision. Actually, hold on just one quick moment. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So what I would ask the city to do is submit its plans. Let's not call them final. That's not the statutory language. Submit its plans for approval by let's do. I don't think anybody objected to the 6 weeks from today. 6 weeks from today would be on. Would be July 18th. So let's set the July 18th for the city's submission of its plans. Now, should the city, I don't think I need to put it in a decision. If the parties think differently, they might let me know. But I think we can all have an understanding that if the parties do not agree on all items, and there is a chance for that to happen, it seems to me, though the majority of issues also seem to me that we will be able to address, then I would entertain a motion, joint or otherwise, by either party to hold an evidentiary hearing. And in that motion, I would ask that the parties propose a procedural schedule. I would assume that the procedural schedule would be truncated because issues would be very confined and limited based on our discussion today, and whatever agreements the parties reach by the time this motion, if it is filed, would be filed. And so do the parties agree with that approach? Mr. Dittman?
Yes, Your Honor, I think we agree with that approach. In terms of a procedural schedule, I assume you'd want a hearing date and then maybe dates to submit witness and evidence lists, and that's probably it, I would assume.
Yeah, it shouldn't. Yeah, witness and exhibit lists, and again, if you want to submit written testimony, I would entertain that. Whatever the parties, or if you just want to do it as a normal, what you would consider a normal, I think evidentiary hearing with direct and cross and rebuttal, that would also be an acceptable. I think it's whatever the parties agree and whatever is reasonable. I'm not saying that I will agree to anything at any time, but if parties are agreed to a reasonable procedural schedule, I'm very likely to approve it.
Okay, that helps, Your Honor. I think, at least now it may make sense to do written just because of the technical nature, I think, of what we're talking about. And so in that case, if the parties were to agree upon that, we would do, direct answer and rebuttal on that.
Direct answer and rebuttal, and then we'll have a hearing on for cross.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
And I just want to clarify, and I'm not trying to overcomplicate, but I do want to get all the kinks out before it becomes back on your plate, is there like a date certain by which we can review the plans before they're submitted to the PUC, just to see if there's additional things we can work out? Or are you suggesting that they revise them and straight submit them to the PUC?
I would hope that the parties continue to talk. I mean, and so I would, and I would also hope that by the time the city plans 6 weeks from now, the BNSF would know what these plans contain and whether there are any points of contention. I'm not gonna. I don't know that I should instruct the city of Longmont to share it by a certain date. I would. I mean, I think it's in Longmont's interest to do so, to try to reach a resolution in this proceeding. But unless again, do you think differently? Do you think a deadline by which the city should? I think at the same time that the city submits its plans, the city will know whether there are any points of contention. At which time, either the city or the BNSF can motion to hold for me to hold an evidentiary hearing on whatever disputed issues. So I'm sorry, that was a very long-winded answer to your question, saying I don't know that a deadline such as this is required, but again, if you think differently and can explain to me why, I might change my mind.
I would just say from at least BNSF's perspective, I mean, some of the things, we're able to work through as we discuss them, and that kind of goes back to originally us asking potentially for a date certain we can get response comments. My experience in this matter, and I've not been involved the entire time, some of it seems like it can get worked out, but we just need a response and to understand so that the parties can move forward.
All right. Mr. Dittman, what are your thoughts on Ms. Werner's request?
I mean, I think in terms of responses, I think you got pretty much all of that today. We can put that on your form probably, I would think, within a couple of days. I think the bigger issue is the meeting and determining the flashers, the pedestrian gates, the quad gates. That's the bigger thing. That's going to take, the parties meeting with the next couple of weeks. And then 2, us resubmitting plans to the commission. I mean, I think everything else sounds like it's just a matter of filling out your form and revising the plan sets, which is pretty easy.
I mean, I'm happy to if the deadline is for the city to submit its plans 6 weeks from now, we can do within these plans should be shared with BNSF within 5 weeks. Does that sound like does that help you address the concern at least, or no later than 5 weeks from today I would hope that throughout this entire there will be communications between the city and BNSF. But as Ms. Werner, as to your request, does the 5-week deadline, does that satisfy your request?
In my head, I was thinking 4, but again, I can't really speak on the hard work that Karen and everyone else on BNSF's have to do. That's just my theoretical concept. Okay. If they can provide more insight on kind of what the process is for them, maybe that would be helpful.
I would think we need at least 2 or 3 weeks to review what is submitted to us to be able to come to a consensus internally and be able to know whether or not our comments were.
Mr. Dittman, what are your thoughts on this? Thank you.
If I can, I'm going to ask a question, Mr. Klatt, and maybe to help fix this to some degree.
Go ahead. This is all informal.
If we could change it, start the plans today on everything but the pedestrian swing gates, the quad gates, and the flasher, which I think are the pieces that require the most redesign. How soon could we get those plans to BNSF?
Without those 3 elements,
yes.
if we could start them today, we'd have them by the end of today.
Okay.
And with those elements in there, we could have that done. Even if we did a full redesign, we could have them done within a week or so. Of those specific elements. Sorry, I said full redesign.
So we can get those back in a week. And then I think the other issues are going to require a meeting of the parties. And so if we wanted to schedule that now, we can do that. And then we can submit probably redesign plans within a week or 2 weeks after that, I would think.
Okay, so that all sounds good. So why won't we schedule a meeting from a week from today, if that works for all the parties, and about 10 days, let's call it. You said a week to 2, so let's kind of split the baby there. 10 days thereafter, submit the city would submit its plans to BNSF.
Yeah. The only issue with that, Your Honor, is I am in a 3-week hearing at the commission starting. I do have some days I am available. And so the 11th in the morning when the commission's doing its weekly meeting, on the 16th, on the 18th, on the 19th are the days that I am available. But otherwise I am booked in through June. So
and Mr. Dittman, I don't want to speak on your behalf. I'll speak on mine. I would be of very little use at that meeting. So I don't know if I defer to you.
Yeah, that's fair.
Okay. Again, I don't want to. The parties are talking, and this is a good thing. I don't want to micromanage the parties. It's not my job. It's not my role. But I do want to have everybody in agreement as to the next steps. The one deadline we all agree on is 6 weeks from today. The city would submit its plans. I think the next item we need to decide, at least as far as a decision, an interim decision that I would be drafting, is something that I think would need to be memorialized. Is by when the plans the plans closest, the plans that contain all the items except for the disputed items would be shared with, well, I guess even the disputed item would be included, but the most recent, I guess, the most updated plans as of that time would be shared with BNSF. That was a mouthful. But so I think we need to again decide on these 2 dates. One date we've decided, and so my question to you to council right now is, what is that second date by which BNSF would share its? By which Longmont would share its plans with BNSF?
Yeah, thank you, Your Honor. So I think as Mr. Klatt and I kind of went through last week, we can submit within a week revised plans that has everything but those 3 items on it. And so the parties would have to meet and determine where we are at on those 3 items, on the flasher, on the pedestrian swing gates, on the quad gates, relatively soon to turn around those plan sets. And we can't really give you a date until when the parties meet. So my proposal would be to schedule, we have all the parties on the line when the technical experts can meet to flesh out those issues. And then we can probably submit plans within a week, I would think, Mr. Klatt, is that right?
Yes, that's right. I think at one point it was mentioned that we would meet with BNSF within this next week, and then that we would submit plans to BNSF 10 days after that. So 17 days from today would put us at the 25th. I guess if we're counting working days, I guess.
Yep.
23rd. Would the 25th be reasonable to everybody?
Maybe the 27th, just to end of the week, add a few days.
Keep it on the Fridays.
Yeah. But yeah, I think it would be helpful, in my opinion, given the difficulty the parties have had convening, that we just schedule something now for the technical experts to meet. And so if it can be done a week from today or next Friday, I think that would be a good idea.
And I would very much like to see the parties meeting. I don't know that I need to be a part of that. If the parties wish to take a few more minutes to check their calendars and get to this agreement, understanding right now, I'm more than happy to spend an extra few minutes. But to the extent you can't, and we need to check multiple calendars, I suggest we do this offline. As far as I'm concerned, in my decision, my interim decision, I will put two deadlines. One for the city's submission of its plans for 6 weeks from today, which is, sorry, I already missed the
July 18th, I think you mentioned, Your Honor.
July 18th, and then another for the city to share its plans with BNSF, which is the 27th. I believe you suggested, Mr. Dittman.
Yeah, 27th of June, Your Honor.
June 27th. Okay. So these are the two deadlines. Ms. Werner, are you agreeable to these two deadlines?
Thank you. And yes, Your Honor, and we'll circle with Mr. Dittman afterwards on availability for the technical experts to meet.
Oh, very good. So I am happy to keep this session open for, a few more minutes. If you think it will take more than a few minutes, then I suggest you, just so that we can, so the parties can determine when their experts might meet with each other to discuss this. Otherwise, I am inclined to adjourn. Which would the parties prefer?
We would suggest that we adjourn. Mr. Nichols had to drop off for a conflict for something else, and so I don't have his schedule now.
Understood. Very good. I very much appreciate the parties attending here today, all the experts, council, of course, and I can tell that the parties are trying to reach an agreement here, and I hope this continues. Like I said, I will issue an interim decision memorializing the two deadlines, one for the city's submission of its plans and the other for the city's sharing of the plans with BNSF. And are there any questions by anybody in attendance before we adjourn? Okay, hearing none. Again, thank you very much. I hope you have a great day, and we're adjourned.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Your Honor.
Thank you.